Okay, I'm starting a part two because I accidentally pushed the stop button for the last recording, so this will have to come to you in two files. Um, Unless I have to upload it to YouTube to get it to you. I'm still not exactly sure about delivery to you. But let me continue with this and solve that problem next. So we are looking at examples. I'm just going through and discussing some with you so you can see what goes into evaluating them for the homework. Let's see, five's not, I'll do five, I'll do eight, I'll do four more examples, 5, 8, and then we'll see, to help you. And I'm doing ones that you don't have answers for, like you do for 9 in the answers to practice exercises, selected answers, to help you that way so that you have more answers. Okay, so 5. Both Johnny Mnemonic and Matrix are sci-fi action films that take place in a dystopian future setting. Both films star Keanu Reeves. Both films involve characters who plug computers directly into their brains. If you like Matrix, then you will enjoy Johnny Mnemonic as well. Alright, so think for a moment. Okay, first let's say what's being compared are Johnny Mnemonic and Matrix. And you liked Matrix, if you like Matrix, let's say you do, then you will enjoy Johnny Mnemonic as the conclusion. Would more samples help? Absolutely. More relevant samples would help. So clearly an inductive analogy. It's not the idea of these movies that is being compared, not the concept of these movies, but the actual movies, which you either enjoyed or you didn't. So what do they have in common? Well, they're the same genre, sci-fi action film. They both take place, they have similar plot settings, dystopian future settings. They both star the same actor, Keanu Reeves. They both have another plot similarity, characters who plug computers directly into their brains. Now, in evaluating the sample, so we're on question 1, it's inductive, so we have to answer question 1. In evaluating the sample, we have to fault this argument for there only being one case. More cases would be better. However, that doesn't mean it's a terrible argument. In some situations, one case is not bad. And when it depends often on how many similarities there are. The more relevant similarities, that can make up for a small number of cases. And in this case, the relevant similarities seem to be pretty good. So you would, for question 2, I think you would say it seems to fit appropriately. If it said probably, it would be better, a little more cautious. If you like Matrix, then you will probably enjoy Johnny Mnemonic as well. That would recognize that the argument's not a slam dunk, but it's pretty good. And and then in evaluating the similarities, I think you'd find them to be strong. Now I've seen The Matrix, I've not seen Johnny Mnemonic. If you've seen both, you might know things about Johnny Mnemonic from which you could construct a counter analogy. Because I don't know Johnny Mnemonic, I don't know how strong that might be. So for question 4, I think it would depend upon your knowledge of the movies. And if you were like me and didn't have any knowledge of Johnny Mnemonic, then I think you'd have to say that at this point we do not have any basis for a good counter analogy. So sometimes it will depend upon your experience, how you answer question 4. Not always, but sometimes. In inductive cases it will. Incidentally, you probably thought about The Matrix as you read Descartes. The people who made The Matrix, if you've seen The Matrix, then you know that the people who made The Matrix were very much influenced by the philosophy of René Descartes, especially his Meditation 1, where we imagine the possibility that we're wrong about just about everything, that, for example, we could be being fooled by an evil genius. which is more powerful than we are about almost everything that we think we know. Okay, let's skip down to 8. Last semester I used 8 for homework 3, and I had, I think, 2 out of maybe 60 students do a good job with it. So I thought, okay, 8 doesn't work. It's really a cool one, but students don't tend to understand it for whatever reason. Maybe you would have. Some did, but very few. Chesterton, again, that British humorist, turn of the century, 19th to 20th century, Catholic thinker, great wordsmith. He says, "My country, right or wrong, is a thing no patriot would think of saying, except in a desperate case. It is like saying, my mother, drunk or sober." Most of my students thought this was bad, and it's actually not so bad. It is a conceptual analogy. What's being compared is what people mean when they say my country, right or wrong, and what someone would mean if he said or she said my mother, drunk or sober. Now you have to think, so what do people mean when they say my country, right or wrong? In America, we associate this phrase often with the Vietnam War, when it was popular for defenders of the war to say this, and they were criticizing the protesters. They were saying, don't criticize or protest, obey. We owe our country's love and patriotism and loyalty, and so it's completely wrong to criticize, to protest, to disobey. Chesterton is attacking them, and I think very justly. He's making a very good point. Because he says it is like saying my mother, drunk or sober. Well, I could imagine saying my mother, drunk or sober. Actually, not my mother, but I have to go for it. My mother doesn't drink, but some mothers certainly do. And if I were just to say, well, she's my mother, drunk or sober, it would have to be a terribly desperate case to say that I just owe blind, uncritical obedience to my mother. Because the truth is, if I love my mother, as I should, as most of us should, I guess there could be cases where you shouldn't, but usually you should. If you love your mother, then if she's drunk, if she has a drinking problem, then you maybe should be critical. Maybe you should even stage an intervention if it's bad enough. And you maybe should disobey. For example, if your mother drunk demands that you do something that's really wrong, say like kill your father or something, then you should disobey her in that case. So, same way with your country. He's saying if you love your country, and normally you should, although again we could imagine exceptions, maybe not if you were living in North Korea today or something. But if you love your country, then it could be that disobedience or criticism or protest is the right way to express that love, because the last thing you want if you love your country is for it to be damaged by bad policies or actions. Just like the last thing you want if you love your mother is for her to be damaged by bad choices about drinking. So it seems to be not only a conceptual analogy, well, it is a conceptual analogy. It seems to be a fairly good analogy. And what I saw in the many students who thought that it wasn't was that they didn't understand it. Okay. Let's do some more. 11 is complicated, but it's the kind you might do in business. There are answers to it. There's an answer to it, though, in the practice answer sheet, so I won't mess around with it. "12 is so obvious, I think I'll skip it too. 14 is a homework problem. 15, let's do that. Dr. John F. Beery III director of Georgetown University Medical Group, argues that physical examinations should be given to people under 40 every other year and to those over 40 annually. People take their car in for servicing every few months without complaint, he says. Why shouldn't they take similar care of their bodies? What is being compared is how often we take our cars in for servicing to how often we ought to take ourselves in for physical examinations. Is this an argument is this an inductive argument? Would more cases help? Not really. This is a conceptual argument. So the first question wouldn't be relevant. What are the similarities? Well, it doesn't actually say much about that, but many are obvious, right? Just as there are systems in your car, like the brakes, like the tires, and so on, that can fatally fail, causing injury or death to you. There are systems in your body that can do the same thing. So even though it doesn't list the similarities, taking just the ones we know, we can come up with quite a few. So is this a good argument by analogy? Well, the conclusion, by the way, is a rhetorical question. We have to. He isn't really asking, right? He doesn't really want us to reflect and give an answer. He's saying we should take similar care of our bodies, right? So is the conclusion reasonable to the evidence? Well, it would seem so. It's not bad that way. Do the similarities, are they relevant? Do they support the argument? Well, pretty strongly. Could you think of a good counter analogy? I couldn't, at least not on short notice. I'm going to skip down and do one more. This is a pretty interesting one, and I thought about putting it on your homework. And then I thought, no, I won't do that. Russell is thinking, though, about something from the philosopher René Descartes. Pardon me just a second. Okay, so number 19. From subjective observation, I know that A, which is a thought or feeling, caused B, which is a bodily act, for example, a statement. For example, I know that my intention to read this to you caused me, which is a mental act, caused me to read it to you, which is a physical act, caused me to speak, to make this statement. So I know also that whenever B is an act of my own body, A is its cause. Whenever I speak, that's because I intended it. I now observe an act of the kind B in a body not my own, and I'm having no thought or feeling of the kind A. Say you speak. And I had no intention to speak, but I still believe on the basis of self-observation that only A can cause B. That is, I believe that only an intention to speak can cause speech. So I therefore infer that there was an A which caused B, though it was not an A that I could observe. On this ground, I infer that other people's bodies are associated with minds, which resemble mine in proportion as their bodily behavior resembles my own. This is called the analogical argument for other minds, and it was also in Descartes, although Russell says it here maybe more clearly. I could get off on the tangent about the philosophy here, and I'll try to limit that. What is being compared? My knowledge of myself, how mental acts cause physical acts in my own case, to my knowledge of other people. Because so stand back.